Finance and Administration Committee meeting to order today. Mr. Thompson's going to lead us in prayer, and Mr. Graves will do the pledge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for all the many rich blessings you bestowed upon us. Please forgive us for all our sins. We know there are many. Guide us and protect us and help us make good decisions for the citizens of Overy County. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll your notes away.
Okay, Ms. Jean, we're going to let you start the meeting.
All right. I'm going to begin with the Charleston update, and I'm going to be focusing on page 4, which gives a month-to-date and a year-to-date summary. Looking at the month-to-date, as you can see, to start off with, under the first column there where it says bales, we always kind of take a look at the bales we had on hand at the end of the month, and as you can see, that's up almost double from the end of January. Like I said, we did have a little bit more on hand. We were closed one day in February, of course, because we had a belt that we were changing out, that I said the main infeed belt. So we were closed today, which had a little bit to do with that as well. The tonnage we sold during the month was down by about 500 tons. We sold a little over 3,000 tons last month and only 2,555 tons this month. And so as you can see, that kind of plays into that, what we still had on hand at the end of the month. So there was an additional revenue of about $63,000 that we didn't receive this month because of the material we still had on hand. As you can see, our average price for the month was $127.33. That's up from last month. Last month was around $118. So that's good. We are starting to see a little bit of an increase in prices. I know got the scrap metal price today, and that is up about $5 a ton. So we are starting to see a slight increase, so that's a positive note. As you can see, for the month of February, the revenue we received from the material that we sold was $325,347.93. We're going to move down to the middle where we have the total incoming tonnage. As you can see, our total incoming tonnage for February was 4,248 tons, which is down from last month as well. I think I mentioned to you last month that we were seeing a decrease in the tonnage that we were receiving, both from us and from Charleston. February is normally a little bit lower month anyway, but like I said, we did see a decrease in the tonnage. As you can see on the reject percentage, our reject percentage was down to 14.73%. So we're getting right close to that 14.5%. We're getting there. We're working hard. Last month we were at 16.74%, so we have seen quite a decrease. And of course that has to do, with the tonnage going out to Charleston, the rejects that are going back to them. The revenue due from Charleston, of course, as you see, like I said, because the price has gone up a little bit, and because we are sending the material back to Charleston, you will see some decreases in these revenue figures as well. The cost share for the month was $18,935.67. Last month it was a little over $40,000. So, and that has to do, of course, with our average price going up to that $127. The reject disposal and, of course, the reject pulls both have to do with the decrease in the rejects coming over here to the landfill. So, like I said, last month our reject disposal was a little over $2,800, and as you can see, it's down to $283. And the same thing with the pulls. Last month was a little over $1,500. It's just down to $141. So our total revenue due from Charleston for the month was at $19,360.29. That, along with the revenue from the material sold, gave us a total revenue for the month of February of $344,708.22. Our expenses for the month were $386,386.36. So we did have a little bit of a deficit of $41,678.14 this month. And like I said, that has to do, of course, like I said, with the material not being sold, as well as, like I said, the decrease in the material that we received as well. I was going to let Mike kind of tell you a little bit about some of the reasoning behind some of the tonnage we didn't receive this month.
Well, typically in February is a down month. Even it was a little bit more down this month. SWA's or Horry County's portion of material that come in was down almost 600 tons. A little over 600 tons of material that didn't come to us that we got in January from one month to the next. We took everything we could get from Charleston, took everything they got, and they couldn't provide us with enough to even operate fully. We shut down several days, which created employee problems because everybody wasn't working full-time. They were getting aggravated. And so we've done everything we could to cut the cost, but our processing per ton in month of January was about 11 tons an hour, almost 11 tons an hour. This month it was in the nines, in January, because we'd run out of material. And it may be an hour before we get any more to run again, so we had to shut the machinery down. And all we did was let the employees clean while the material was trying to get there. We shut down several nights early, several days early, just because we didn't have it. But we had our cost, but we didn't have any material to operate on.
Charleston still operating the same number of collection locations?
They're operating them, but what they're doing is taking the ones that's scattered around the county that's just up there for everybody to put anything in. They're pre-sorting them before they send the material to us. They're taking, material got dramatically better.
So as a summary, we're obviously getting less material, but we're getting better material. The rejects are down, and so we're getting better material, even though it's less material.
Right. When we started sending the rejects back, that gave them incentive to try to cut the rejects down,
I bet it did.
because all that cost associated with it going back.
I'd rather have less than it be better.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you anticipate them, you said February is a down month for them as well as us?
In
How
order-
do you think March will be? I'm sure as the beach season gets closer, it will be quite a bit more.
Well, you know, there's two things we have in a big, that's got me uneasy. One of them is that we don't get enough material this month. What we found out through this process, we keep finding out things, that the month that we made the most money, we had 5,000 tons that come through the facility, almost 5,000 tons. So that tells me that's a good number. We need to be operating with what we got at 5,000 tons total coming from Horry and Charleston. And it gives us, with its prices as low as they are, it gives us enough money to operate off of and make a little bit to process 5,000 tons. That averages about 240 tons a day. Yeah, we can operate somewhere around 225 to 240 every day if the machinery's running and we get the material in and get enough employees in. So, but the month of March, this past Monday, we done 243 tons. Tuesday, we done 260 some tons. So, and I don't know what the number is today yet, but it looks like it's gonna be down. I was making a phone call to see how many more loads we had coming in. The biggest problem we have is manpower. Just found out before we walked in here that should have 31 employees today come in for second shift. We had 16 show up. So that means we have to slow the machinery down so we can handle material. So we will not be processing. My goal is to process 11 tons an hour.
Were the ones that did not show up, were they our regular employees, or did they come from temporary?
All temp labor.
It was all temp labor. What does the temp people we work with, what did they have to say about that?
It's a revolving door, and it'll always be that way.
How many of the temp people do we work with in the area?
4.
4 different ones? Okay.
We're doing everything we can to get them there. They give you an example. I had a guy walk in my office the other day. They said, I really enjoy working here, but I can only work 2 days a week because it messes with my money. If I work more than 2 days a week, I won't get my money at the end of the month. But anyway, the employees is the
Right.
biggest issue, and that hurts us when we don't have enough employees because we have to slow the machinery down in order to keep the rejects from getting too high. And we did have CP Manufacturing come in this month and give us some ideas, so, and I'll explain those over there to the board.
Okay. Any questions?
Recycle more. Recycle more.
Recycle more. Well, we could ask for that to be made mandatory, and we
Think you can
probably
arrange
would
that
be
for me?
busy.
You think you can arrange that for me?
I wish I could. It would be a good thing if we could. Jan?
Okay, just at the bottom of the page, like I said, I just kind of want to point out a couple of things. Of course, the rejects hauled to Charleston. You see, for the month of February, we hauled a little over, right at 480.08 tons. And of course, this is also the rejects that are going from the C&D recycling facility to Sandlands for the month. Year-to-date, like I said, we do have overall deficit of right at around a little over $49,000. So we're going to continue to work on that. We're hoping, like I said, that March will be much better and that, we can get rid of that deficit. Our goal, of course, is to break even. And so that's what we're still working towards, striving towards March. Any questions on this report?
Not the report. I guess there's just one question I have. We are hauling out the same tonnage that we're getting in on their rejects. That's correct. I know we're not exactly perfect right now. That's not really where I'm going here. Where I'm going with this is, to me, if we're gonna haul out rejects that we have here, whatever rejects we have that would take up the most airspace would be my choice for the rejects we choose to haul out.
Well, you've got to, certain rejects, you got to haul to a certain.
Okay. Microphone. I think she wants you to talk into your microphone.
Yes, ma'am.
So in other words, there's a criteria for that, because I know if we're gonna haul out the same tonnage, there are some tonnage materials that would actually take up more land space than others because of the bulk, and that would be my choice to remove.
We're hauling about a tractor trailer load a day out from the factory over here.
Okay.
It's coming from all material, Ms. Creech.
So you're not just choosing.
You can't choose. It just comes out, when it comes out the line, it comes out the end of the line, and it's put in a compactor, and we just take that compactor and dump it on the ground out there in that bunker and load it in the truck.
That's at the MRF, but the
Yeah.
one over here,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that comes off the end of the line
Okay.
is fluff and styrofoam and
Mattresses.
we do put,
Select.
we finish the load out with wet padding and stuff like that to finish the load.
Okay.
So we getting as much on the truck as we can. And I don't know how close we are to being balanced out,
I'll have to take a look. I'm not sure.
but we'll know at the board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the month of February, down at the bottom, we sent 717 tons, went out of the landfill, or did not go into the landfill, let's put it that way.
Right.
Whereas, as you can see, we only had 626 tons that actually did, and of that, only 535 of that was Charleston. So as you can see, we sent more out than we did into the landfill this month. So we are starting to catch up that gap a little bit. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. Any board, do you have any questions, Sam?
Thank you. With regard to Charleston doing the pre-sort, is there any effort that's detectable to see if they're getting the higher valued items out of there, or
Because we can't handle the total amount of tonnage that when we get back to our normal 2,000 tons a month generating in Horry County, we can't handle everything they do. They are pulling cardboard out, and stuff like that and baling it. Or if they have cardboard accounts, like we have cardboard accounts, they're killing them in there and baling them. They started doing that when we couldn't handle the total amount of waste stream or recycling stream that they did that. They had to reduce the volume, and they chose to pick the cardboard and stuff out to bale it and sell it. The high-value stuff is the plastics and the,
Right.
and the.
Or the cardboard's
yeah.
not worth as much as the plastics, but, I mean, just like I said, I'd prefer in the tonnage to send the worst that would cause us the most airspace out. You can't blame them for doing that either.
Right.
Picking and choosing and deciding if we can't handle what they have, so I understand why they would,
They give me
do
a
that.
sheet for all 12 months, what they did last year. I asked them for those tonnages, so I could see and how it fluctuated hours, where we was at, and when I wasn't gonna be able to handle it. And they average about 3,300 tons a month.
okay.
And we're supposed to take, now, supposed to take 3,000 a month maximum from them.
Okay. Okay. Any other,
That's all I have, thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
Good, thanks.
Okay, Jan?
Okay. The next item on the agenda is some budget discussion. I've gotten some preliminary figures. I'm on page 12, I'm sorry. Gotten the operating budget back from the directors and managers, and just, haven't had time to really go through it thoroughly, but I've gotten some preliminary figures together. And based on the expenses versus revenue, we're looking at an estimated deficit of around $538,501. At this point, I know at the pre-budget workshop, we talked about a tipping fee increase. And like I said, I know, we're still, discussing some of those, discussing that as well. But I guess at this point, like I said, in order to get our budget balanced and prepared for you for the workshop in April, I need a little bit of direction from the board as to what the priorities are for the organization. If for some reason we don't, receive a tipping fee increase this year, we still have to have, of course, a balanced budget. I still have to know where you would like to see us be able to get that deficit from at this point. And I think we need to, at some point, kind of put into some kind of categories, prioritize what's important. Is it important for us to maintain funds in our waste diversion account for future projects and looking at other programs and things?
And right now, we're not funding that account, but there's over $700,000 in that account.
That's right, yes, sir. You see below on page 12, I listed the designated accounts and their balance as of February 29th, so you can kind of see what is in those designated accounts. Exactly, at one time, we were funding it several years ago. We were putting 25 cents a ton into that to build that fund up. In order to maintain our budget, we had to cut that out. So we have not funded that for several years. So the only way to put money into that account is through those quarterly transfers that we do. And as you know, we haven't been able to transfer any money this year. As a matter of fact, we had to take money from the construction and development account this last quarter back out. And so I don't foresee us being able to do any transfers this year. I don't see it next year, as tight as our budget is. I don't see that as a possibility. So understand that if we withdraw money from that account, we're pretty much depleting that account. There would not be much money left in there, as you can tell. We've got landfill construction, future landfill construction. We put money aside, as you can see there, through our MSW and our C&D tonnage for every ton that comes across. And if that's not if that's not the number one priority, if that's something that you maybe would not want to see funded next year, we could take that out of our budget for next year and use those funds for that deficit. However, with the understanding, again, like I said, it's going to be short. We already know it's short right now for the construction that's due in 2025. And so, of course, what we've been doing with every transfer, anytime we had money available, we were putting it into that construction account so that we would have the money there. Well, by taking it from there, not only are you not having money to go in there with the transfer, now you don't have the money going in there with the tipping fee either. With the understanding when the time comes, we'll be twice as short. But it depends on, like I said, what your priorities are. Eliminating some of our waste diversion programs. We've got several waste diversion programs that are wonderful programs. They're doing great things for the Solid Waste Authority, and they're doing just what we intend them to do, divert the waste, from going into the landfill, saving landfill airspace. But if one of those programs is not a priority, that would be, something we could take a look at, maybe cutting out of our budget for next year. I just have to have some direction from the board as to what is important, what's our top priority, where do you see us being able to get the money to meet our budget?
Out of your the designated accounts we have here, like the landfill construction development, how much per ton are we putting in these accounts?
For the landfill construction, as you can see up at the top right under there, we're putting $2.88 per ton for every ton of MSW, and 89 cents for every ton of C&D.
Okay. And the other programs, are you you're
Closure
not
and
doing that an amount, or just?
Closure and post-closure are the only other ones that we are putting a per dollar amount aside. total closure, post-closure, and construction, we're putting $6.25 of every ton for C&D and MSW.
And the projection to get us where we need to be is 750?
750, yes, sir. On page 13, I've included a chart that Vance Moore provided for me. It really gives you a very good look at where we are, where we need to be. He based this on figures as of July 1st, 2015, where our estimated liabilities are based on when the funds are needed. And you can kind of see that kind of in the middle. The designated cash amount, of course, is based as of July 1st, what we had on hand. And so it gave us what our deficit is under additional funds needed. And then based on the remaining capacity left in the landfill as of July 1st, this is what we need to be putting aside per ton so that we would have the money available, when it's needed. And as you see, like I said, we're putting $6.25 aside and not the $7.44 or $7.50 as he has recommended. And if the deficit that I have given to you on the previous page, on page 12, does not include any increase for closure, post-closure, or construction. It is based strictly on the $6.25 a ton.
And this is based on us closing when? What date?
2043.
2043.
The other designated accounts, the construction development, waste diversion, OPEB, those are the ones that we don't put any money into those accounts unless transfer money is available. Equipment replacement, we do budget for that. That is the depreciation that we budget each year. But there's, like I said, there again, that account is one of those that we base the depreciation based on the cost of the equipment today. Of course, when you purchase it 7 years from now, what you've put into that account was based on what you purchased it today, but 7 years from now, that cost has gone up $50,000 to $60,000. So of course, that account itself is starting to eat away a little bit at a time as well. But so these accounts start to dwindle quite quickly without any transfers.
Any questions?
I was hoping that maybe, since we kind of discussed it today, that maybe at the board meeting Tuesday night, if the board can kind of put together some kind of plan for me to let me know where they would like to see us go, so that I can have that available as I prepare the draft budget.
If we left it at the $6 and something, what year would that balance out instead of the 2043? What year would?
What it is based on the amount of tonnage going into the
based on
landfill, so,
tonnage, Not
So
based
still-
on the year?
not based on years, it's based on tonnage, total tonnage.
Okay.
So no matter if you didn't load out till 2050, it wouldn't get fully funded into 2050 because it's based on per ton,
Per ton,
not years.
not the years that goes in
And if you filled it up quicker,
You'd need-
you'd get it
there.
quicker.
You'd get it, you'd
That's-
do that.
But it's $1.25 short currently, and unless we increase it by $1.20 or so, we won't be fully funded at the end of it. And every year we don't fully fund it, it gets farther behind. So that number goes up.
Okay.
So you got less tonnage to divide that number by. So every year you wait fully funding that thing, that number goes up.
Yeah, he's got a 2% inflation built into the cost estimates. And, and originally we had said, well, we'll put 2% interest in to kind of keep up with some of that inflation. Well, we're not getting the 2% interest to put into that account. So therefore, that also contributes to us falling behind.
I'm looking at, this is the budget deficit page under landfill construction, and it says the $720,000, and that's the actual amount we have in that fund, correct?
That's what we'll be putting into that fund this
Annual
year.
basis.
Okay.
This year.
All right. And what's the balance?
Balance as of,
6.5.
if right down at the bottom, you see the landfill construction is $6,553,000. That's what the current balance is as of February 29th.
Thank you.
And you need, in 2025, you need an additional About 16, you need $16 million to start building it, to have it ready by 2027.
On the piggyback?
Yeah, phase 2.
This thermometer is always in your packet, and that kind of tells you how much we have,
And how much we'll spend over that time.
how much we need, and how much total cost is gonna be.
I guess what I was saying about the 625 is that, you know, if we choose not to fund it add the $1.25 to it 2 or 3 years, that number could go to $2 in order to meet the end of it. So, it'll-
Have to continue going up.
yeah,
to
And then
meet
if you waited till the last year before closure, you wouldn't have enough
to
to
get it,
reach
yeah.
your money.
Anyone have any questions on the agenda items we have here today?
We did get a, or you were going to put together analysis of surrounding facilities, prices, tipping fees, and all. I know we talked about that last time about, and we had some of them, but you're going to summarize that and?
I will put that together, and I do have some of the figures on my desk. We did, look, we know the state average for MSW is $35 a ton, but we did, like I said, you know, Mike and I got together, and I did compile a list, and I will have that for you. I'll
Okay.
have that at the board meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Knight and I do have a meeting tomorrow morning with several members of county council and Mr. Thompson and county administrator to discuss our budget. So if there's anything that you have that you'd like for us to bring forward, we'd be more than happy to, but we'll have a report on that probably at the board meeting.
Okay.
You know, I just would like to say that theoretically, it's not sustainable to keep rates the same over a long period of time when we know costs are going to go up. Not only regular operating expenses, but the handling of the materials. Even if we have additional tonnage come in, which creates additional revenue, there are additional costs associated with that. So I think that it's been a remarkable job to keep the tipping fees where they've been for the length of time they've been there, just over the future, the foreseeable future, whether it's this year or next year, at some point, I don't think there's any question, we've got to take a look at tipping fees and an increase in tipping fees. I just don't think it's sustainable if we expect those rates to stay the same and we know expenses are going to go up. We're going to keep digging a bigger and bigger hole.
Just to give you a summary too, yeah, I have to commend staff because they did a fabulous job with their budgets this year. Less the increase for the, of course, for the Charleston.
Did Bill Hilling really take a big pay cut? He offered to do that to
He
make
didn't,
sure
but
his
thank you for
department-
reminding me of that.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was what.
But
talked
we
about.
had an overall, just an overall
Bill.
increase in budget of about 2.9%, which I think is phenomenal considering, like I said, you know, you've always got a cost of increase in your personnel cost, our health insurance, we always budget a 20% increase. We have an increase in our workers' comp. So to just have a 2.9% overall increase, I think is quite outstanding. Like I said, staff did a wonderful job with their budgets. I was very pleased. So,
And I'll commend you about that as well. I know, you know, we all look and think that there's ways that we can tighten our belt, and I think you've done that. And I think that over time, a lot of that's been done. And at some point, the belt gets about as tight as you can get it. And
yes,
so
sir.
I appreciate everybody's efforts in that regard as well.
Thank you.
Did you have time to look into the costs that I talked to you about, like the county did with their lighting and bulbs and the 70-some% they saved on that?
And I have not gotten the complete report. My understanding is there's an expense, a big expense ahead of time, I think, to get it started, is my understanding. I think that was one of the things that kind of, you know, was a deterrent in the fact that having to invest in it to begin with. But I will, like I said, I will get with Lisa to see if I can get a full report on how that works completely. But I think the biggest thing was the cost to get it started was going to be.
They did have a lot of cost in some things, but the replacement of the light bulbs and things were one of the smallest costs with one of the biggest returns. I'm not advocating that we go through what the county did and hire somebody to do all of that. But their 70-some% of their savings was basically in light bulbs.
Yeah, I think we can do some of that through the course of the year. I certainly want to take a look at, our leachate collection systems and see if we can't save money on Grand Strand Water and Sewer, and, I think there's some things that we can do with the electric companies to come in and take a look and do some audits for us.
Right.
And I think we can do some of that stuff in-house next year.
Well, they, in the SWANA material, they've been discussing different leachate pumps and replacing them as it gets to that.
Yeah.
That there's quite a bit of savings in that material I've been getting from them. So, and I'm not advocating we go out and replace a whole lot of anything, or replacing something that its lifespan is not finished. But I definitely think we need to start looking at when the life of whatever piece of equipment that is
I agree.
costing us monthly, looking at it, replacing it with something that's a
Yeah.
lot more cost efficient.
Yeah, the LED lights, if you bought a floodlight lately, you know that, they have, they've jumped way up, but,
Yeah.
the lifetime expectancy is so much higher.
Right.
Your meter doesn't run as that, but it's
Right.
just a shock that goes by you.
Sticker shock.
Yeah, floodlight.
And as many as we use, and it would look to me the same with the county, it would look to me like we could buy these things wholesale.
You've got state purchasing. We can buy on state purchasing.
Okay,
And that's bid statewide, just like we buy, some equipment off state purchasing.
okay.
Police vehicles, they bid them statewide, and there's thousands and thousands across the state.
Right,
And, I know one time we had some questions downtown about buying the pickup trucks with winches on the front,
yeah,
and why we were doing that and wasting money. But you could buy a pickup truck with a winch on it cheaper than you could drive a straight model, because the state used so many of them, and wildlife and everything.
Yeah.
So it's,
and occasionally I would think we'd need a winch on the front of something,
well, we
in
got,
case somebody got
yeah, we-
stuck
yeah,
on the landfill.
sure enough. Yeah.
No, I won't mention no names, but, you know, sometimes these things just happen.
Might need to get one.
I also noticed, I was watching the county preliminary budget retreat, and they were discussing how much their insurance, and I think we do our insurance and retirement through the state, do we not?
Yes, ma'am.
They were discussing that when when you have people that are filing, the cost goes up. But yet we don't have the same savings from them when we don't file as much. And that was a big discussion they had yesterday. And what they were going to be deciding to do about that, is there any reason that we have to have insurance through the state? Or can we work that out on our own with different,
We could look at that, and the county just went through that. They did an analysis and kind of went, and it was more cost effective for them to stay with the state health insurance. And I think because it's do what?
They won't let us do it on our own.
No, they won't let us do it on our own through the state health insurance, no.
oh, okay.
No, we tried and we applied, but they will not allow us to on our own. But, you know, with somebody else, or, like I said, we probably would not get as good a rate, like I said, because we are with a bigger group, as a smaller group. So like I said, but they did the analysis themselves and found it better to stay with the
Yeah.
state.
Well, they were going through that whole discussion again yesterday and looking at it, because they were getting charged way more because of how many they had filing on things, but yet very differently, when you didn't have as much, they were not getting the savings that other people get from doing that. So they had quite a bit of a discussion about their retirement and their insurance. So can the county not do any differently? Can they?
Self-insure, they can, yeah, and I think that's what they've looked at this year, but I think the problem you have a lot of times, you sit down at the coffee shop in the morning and the guy will say, well, I can save y'all a ton of money, I can sell you that insurance cheaper.
Well,
There's a lot of that goes on, but when you really look at everything involved, it doesn't work out quite that way.
it just doesn't, I know
But I
SAF,
wish them luck, because
Well.
if they save a ton of money and we can work with them, we will too. But we looked at going on state ourselves and couldn't, but we do get money back, if we, what is it, on workman's
On
comp?
our workers' comp, we do,
During the course of the year, if you have a good year.
right. Well, just about every time, we don't have anyone that's injured, so we ought to be pretty good as far as
well,
workman's comp's
we're gonna
concerned.
see probably about a 30% increase this year, because we have had a bad year that we're falling into. And like, we discussed earlier too, you know, you get rated on two when these claims close. And like I said, we've had a year that we've had a lot of claims, as well as when claims were closing. So, and your rating is based on a 3-year time period. So we're gonna have this high year for the next 3 years. And, Nanette met with the workers' comp adjuster not too long ago, and he said we're probably looking at about a 30% increase in our workers' comp.
30%'s an awful lot
It is.
of
So-
in-
We always budget at least a 20% increase, but,
right.
so,
30%. I know SAS in Raleigh does the self-insurance, and they actually have certain doctors, chiropractors, blood analysis, child care, and everything together, and they save an awful lot of money. So I don't know how much exactly the county is spending, or that we are, and how much it would be per. And of course, if you had a really bad year, it probably wouldn't work out that way.
And we have 60-some employees on this side, and we got 60-some on the other side at the recycling centers,
Right.
which are works for county stuff. But we look at them as our employees, and there's a lot of age difference,
Yeah.
requirements and everything, so you kind of stay on top of it, but people do get stuck and get hurt, so.
Can we talk briefly about the waste diversion designated account? I know over the years, we've talked about locating that elusive magic box, and a lot of investigation has gone into finding alternative methods, but what else would be a utilization for that account, those monies that are designated in that account?
Good example would probably be some people we met with today. Just a company came in to talk to us about equipment. They were talking about ways to get more recycling out. They're discussing, it didn't gone anywhere because we've not talked to the boards or committees about it, or even got that far yet. Even, would you say, Danny? I mean, it's just basically discussion. But like, they wanted to do a pilot program. And with that pilot program, there's gonna be some machinery needed and stuff in order to do that pilot program, because they say their system will work to increase the amount of recyclables we taking out. It's basically a bag program, where a hotel could throw a bag of recyclables down in with their garbage, and then there's a sorting process when you get to the landfill. You know, if the board said, yeah, we like that, we want to look at it on a pilot basis, you could take the money out of that account to make that happen.
And then again, he was talking, even if you didn't do the pilot program, if you wanted to put a ballistic separator on the front end, and they had them in Montgomery, it's a piece of equipment that separates the stuff up front versus stars and the rotary wheels and everything, and you get better material out. And we have talked about putting some more equipment at the MRF to pull selected loads in, and putting another line in maybe outside the building towards the scales. But this diversion program is somewhat like the construction program that you set money aside for. And then in the future, we've always bragged about we don't owe any money, and we pay as we go. And that's where these account, that's the way the MRF was built. When we built the MRF, the money was in the bank. But any piece of equipment that we buy, and the guy said today, we know that it'll be bid, and we know it'll be publicly bid, but we just wanted to give you some ideas.
You know, I think that the way the restriction to policy read was that it had to be used for diversion programs that would divert waste from the landfill. It had to be something to do with that. If y'all were looking at it, or if you wanted to hire a firm to do a consulting thing, to go out and review a certain type of thing, you would have money to do that. And that's the way the policy read, was that it had to be for something that would divert waste from the landfill. And that's just another one of those things, you know, you're talking about all of our recycling or diversion programs that we have. You know, you might want to start another one or find something else to do. But if you ain't got the money to do it with, you can't save days of landfill space.
Y'all are not talking into your mic. Esther's gonna yell at you.
They don't want us to hear it.
They don't want us to hear. Okay, well, method to their madness. I have a problem with taking too much out of the diversion, because frankly, once we get through after this summer with finding out exactly what we have in the landfill, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. When you find out what you have, you need to decide what you're going to do with it. If we're going to be paid to bring it in, and for nominal changes, we can sell it by buying a piece of equipment to do that with, that would be my choice, instead of it going into the landfill, because that just continues every day that we use that piece of equipment to save landfill space and to push that further out, and then we have the money to do what we need to do. So diversion, as far as figuring out how to recycle the things that we will find out we get in, is something that I'm very interested in doing. And at the time we find those things out and we find that equipment that will do that, I would like to have the money to fund that. I also don't want to get into borrowing money. I don't think we need to start that. I think it's been done, and that's one of the things, the greatest things about this particular facet of government that I like, is that's the way that's worked, and that's the way you've always worked that to be. So I'm not really interested myself personally in starting to borrow money or bond money, and I'm certainly not interested in doing away with safe recycling diversions of the trash that we'll find that we have.
I think a good example most recently, as Danny mentioned just a minute ago, was that the board wanted to do the waste study to find out what materials we could divert from the landfill. That money come from the waste diversion.
Yeah. So that's just from my standpoint. I want to be able to do those things. We have spent a lot of time, decades, and money through that time and educational processes to turn around and stop that, or to change it, or then not to recycle like we have taught the schools to do in this area, I think would be irresponsible of us. So those are programs that I'm interested in keeping and furthering and figuring out how to do. It would be interesting if some of our new robotics team people would kind of work on some of those things for us, and through that, win some of the scholarships that we give and actually help us in that. I'd like to see them work within those realms of things. So they do interest me. I'll be real honest, I'm never been much for raising taxes or raising fees. I don't like that. Elephant in the room, it's not something I like to do. We all have to do that from time to time. And if the rest of the board votes to do that, I would think about that, but I would want to know exactly where all of that money was going. The first amount of money, if we were to raise a fee, as far as I'm concerned, the first $1.25 should go to post-closure and post-closure to fund what we've been told is going to need to be funded. And that would be something of that magnitude would be where I would choose maybe to vote to raise a rate or a fee.
And probably what we will do for the board meeting, to give you kind of a guide, is kind of show you pretty much what these programs are costing out of the $29,
Yeah.
and where it's going. And we heard through the Charleston stuff how important 3 days was
Yeah.
on saving space. And these diversion programs that we have, diversion, recycling, green, do good, whatever you call it, costs money.
Yep.
And it's just like these high-dollar light bulbs. You got to pay for them, you got to pay more for them, but you save down the line on energy,
Right.
and not buying a bulb every year. So hopefully we can put it together where people can understand that we've been in at $29 for a long, long time.
Right. Well, Solid Waste Authority Board has got some tough decisions to make. Anytime you start to raise prices, the people you're doing business with are not going to be extremely happy. I don't think any of us are when that happens. There are also, in my opinion, some things that some of our elected officials have got some difficult decisions to think about, and they may have some to make, because I think we need to have figures for them. Nobody likes a mandatory anything. But I think they have some decisions to make, just like some other counties and some other states. They have banned plastic bags. There is a huge savings for us if that happens in our equipment, in how we do business. Having recycling, if it's only cardboard or certain things, I think our public officials need to know that there are other ways to save monies and for us to generate these monies if they make some hard decisions and help us do that. And I think they need to be shown how much savings that would be, and what they could do as far as their decisions for recycling in areas to do that, and how it would save us money and how it might keep us from raising rates if they decided to be responsible enough to choose those things.
Yeah, it is one thing that, as y'all deliberate over what you want to do, if you start thinking about some of the diversion programs that we have, remember sometimes something else is hit when you do that. You know, for instance, if the C&D factory came up to be something that needed to go away, it also brings materials to the MRF. So then you're taking that revenue away from over there. A lot of those programs is interrelated to different departments as a revenue generator. So you need to, it's not just, well, let's eliminate that program. Well, you got to reduce revenue on the other side because you ain't got it on the other side.
For every action, there's a reaction, and we need to know what those reactions will be if we get to the point of saying we might want to eliminate that program. I expect y'all to let us know the full result of that before we choose that. Mr. Thompson, I think you had something you wanted to say before I kind of interrupted you a while ago.
Just going back to the waste diversion, I know that we talked about a piece of equipment at the MRF or something. That wouldn't ever preclude us from having a department in their capital budget decide a piece of equipment was needed.
Well, what typically happens, has happened in the past, is we put money in the construction and development account, and we buy a new piece of equipment to develop a program or something, we could take it out of there. But us continue to take money out of that account, that money's going away. So typically, if you go do something in the MRF, you're talking any change at all would be $250,000, $300,000. And with the budget as tight as it is, you can't reach out and grab $350,000 at one time, you have to save it. But yet, we've been taking money out of that account that we've been saving it in.
And to put it in a line item at the first of the budget, it's gonna have to come out of them tipping fees someplace. Out of operating or something. So that's one reason that our equipment account works so well. It hits you every year, but if Bill come in and say, we got to have 2 compactors 3 years from now, and we hadn't been putting that money aside, it'd take the whole budget.
I don't know if this makes the decision more difficult or easier, but in reading the ordinance 6090, which established the Solid Waste Authority, on the second page, it dictates that the purpose of the authority shall be to develop and implement in all respects an adequate solid waste disposal and resource recovery recycling system for all the residents, commercial and industrial operators within the county and such other entities as the authority deems appropriate, and such activities are hereby deemed essentially public in nature. So our mandate is to recycle. Our mandate is resource recovery, and we just have to find a way to continue to do that to the best of our ability. So it's not just a hill that we're building. It's in our mandate to recover these resources and to recycle.
And it's also the responsible thing to do and to teach, and I think that we are capable of doing that. And I think we still need to be, thank you, I think we still need to be very mindful of that.
And I think these things that are in the forefathers put in these things, we have followed them, we have done, we have, like some of these adjoining counties that's got these $30 plus tipping fees, they not doing all this stuff.
Yeah,
They're just not doing it.
yeah.
And we are, and household hazardous waste is one that you really wouldn't have to do.
Yeah.
But it's the thing to do.
It is the thing to do, because if we don't do it here, the county's gonna have to pay to clean up where people dump it. The money's gonna come from somewhere. And it's gonna come from tax money, whether it's here or the county or the state or the federal government, it's gonna come from somewhere. And I think it is a good thing to do. And since you mentioned that, someone asked me, they're telling people now not to flush their excess drugs down the toilet because it ends up in the water system. Does the hazardous waste, do they take
Sure.
prescription drugs?
We don't do that, and I've talked to one of the water companies to see if they were having trouble with it, having problems, and they said no. But I think you've got to have some type of law enforcement involved in that chain of turning
Okay.
medicines and stuff in.
I've had a lot of people ask me since I've been on the board what they should do with that, and I really don't. I don't take prescription drugs, so I don't know.
The sheriff and Horry County Police has done several things out at the complexes, days taking that material.
That they take
the
that?
medicine.
Okay.
I hadn't heard one lately, but I think it was 6, 8 months ago, they had a big one on a Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
And perhaps the pharmacies will do it as well.
Yeah,
I think they do.
they will take it back too.
They will, okay. Do you have any more questions of the staff? Any instructions? Any comment? Any wisdom, words of
We're,
wisdom?
we're looking for y'all to bring us the wisdom.
I'm sorry.
I think you're doing a very good job. I appreciate all the work you've done.
Thank you.
And I expect this meeting tomorrow and your INR meeting to go very well. It has been so far, and I think they're very impressed with the work that you've done.
I actually, upon reflection, have one thing I wanted to
Okay.
ask. This current state of the business, going into a budget year, when you make your presentation to the full board, I'm not asking for an answer today, but I want to know, is this something that is, when you look forward, is this a stage that we're going through, that we are compressed, that we are stuck in a situation that's not permanent? Or do you see it opening up and perhaps getting back where we were many years ago, where we were able to put some money away? What is the forward looking of the business that would allow us to know if we're just trying to manage a hard time, or is this the future? And that this is more of a,
I think the hard time started 8 years ago. But what would be so helpful if the commodity prices got back on up? If they went up and fuel stayed down, we'd be in great shape. And then and we had some mandates on, some recyclables that, there's not mandates there now, I think it would do it. But we've been in this crunch, and we've tightened the belt, and, we lost materials 2 or 3 years ago. We made that up, unfunded 5 positions or so, but we have managed along and along. But when we had to take the money out of a reserve account last year to balance the budget was the slide. I mean, that's when we started, and we don't think we need to continue it. And that's the reason we got kind of the blessings to look at fee increases and come back to the board. And I only think that we need to recommend to y'all what we view to be the need, and not not where the presidential race stands or any other thing. But but we'll have some recommendations or some things that you can look at, and we won't have to do them at the board meeting, but the quicker we get them done, the better off we'll be to put this thing in place, because now we've got to the position that we always presented our budget downtown, but now it's turned in that, that's an approval process, which they've always approved it, but now it's getting more looked at more closely,
Yeah.
and what fees are. And we don't have a problem. We'll be there in the morning to show them some of the things we've talked to y'all about today.
I think what we've done last year, every year, Danny, and the board has instructed us to cut our budget, balance our budget with our revenue. And we've done that every year since 2008, with revenue going down every year. And last year, we did it by taking money out of an account, which was a shock to us. We never had to do that before. And this year, we're here saying we can continue to drain those accounts if that's what the board so likes, but necessarily, we don't think we can recommend it.
Well, I agree with you. That's not the way to balance a budget, is taking money that is designated for another thing. And I suppose my answer to Mr. Graves' question is this: C&D, we lost quite a bit of money. I think we probably could have come close to balancing our budget this year and not taking that out last year had we not lost the amount of C&D we had. That isn't coming back because people have that choice now. I don't see very much of that, if any of that, coming back. So that will go on as it is in the future. The commodity prices that have just gone up a little bit, and I think the reason they have is because oil went back up quite a bit. So the commodity prices going back up would help us quite a bit, but also the oil prices, that's going to be something that's going to cost us as well. So if the economy's good and we have more product in and the commodity prices go back up, I think that will help us. It will just remain to be seen year to year how much that will do.
Well, that's what we did. We worked off the if last year. We're gonna take 500,000 out of this thing. If this works and that works, maybe we won't have to go get that 500,000. And what happened was the commodity prices dropped out of the bottom. And now we gotta go get that 500,000 out of that account. And the question is, do we wanna continue to play that if?
I would like to see certain things that would help us a lot if recycling was something that was done. Different things of that nature. Mandatory, whatever you want to call it, but plastic bags, that 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 different things that we have that would make a tremendous difference, but yet would not be a terrible inconvenience.
Well, what you're gonna do, anytime you, let's say we've done a cardboard program, which is probably the most easiest. If you took all the cardboard out of the system, you're gonna get less revenue at landfill. And you gotta hope that the commodity price is high enough to balance that back out. And that is not being seen. So any kind of mandate is just for land, it's another one in the diversion programs, you know? And the question is, as long as commodity price is up, you're doing good. Next month, they may be down.
Yep.
But 400 days of landfill space have been
Worth it.
saved through, right.
Yeah.
It's-
That's a big difference.
Right.
And that's our goal. That's what we've been instructed to do, save landfill space, create programs, save landfill space, and that's what we've done all those years.
Right.
If you're not having a balanced budget, which we will, and you are not making the income you need to, then extending the life is just the slow spiral that goes down if you're not covering these things. So it lasting longer is merely prolonging the agony rather than solving the problem on the front end. I guess when we had those income streams and we had those monies coming in and we were responsible in putting them away for a rainy day, that ought to be a good indicator of the responsibility that we take in managing the authority they gave us.
That spiral could make us a liability for the citizens of Voorhees County instead of an asset as it is today. And you know what happens to liabilities? Somebody will find some way to make them go away.
I mean, balance is the key. What can we afford to not do to maintain our responsibilities in the long term? And I always try to look at the longest term possible.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you very much for all the work you've done. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you.
It's not always required.